Why fairness is a beautiful lie. We are told from childhood to play fair. In school, on the sports field, and in professional life, fairness is preached as the cornerstone of a good society. Teachers tell us to share. Coaches tell us to follow the rules. Corporations tell us about values and ethics in their glossy mission statements. Fairness, we're promised, is not just morally right, it's the path to success. But step back and look at the real world, and a very different truth emerges. The people who rise to the top, who dominate industries, who rule nations, are rarely the ones who played fair. They are the ones who knew when to bend rules, when to strike first, and when to cloak cruelty under a smiling mask. Niccolo Machiavelli, the Renaissance political strategist, dared to say this truth out loud. Living in the ruthless world of Italian city-states, where betrayal and backstabbing were daily survival tactics, Machiavelli stripped away illusions about power. In The Prince, his infamous guidebook for rulers, he argued that morality is a tool, not a law. To him, being good for its own sake was naive. Survival required something harsher: cunning, calculation, and ruthlessness. His name has since become synonymous with manipulation and cold ambition, and for good reason. This video digs into Machiavelli's darkest lessons. They are not comfortable, they are not fair, but they are brutally effective. To understand power in its rawest form, to see why fairness often leaves you defenseless, you must step into Machiavelli's world. Each lesson shows how ruthlessness, when used with precision, beats good intentions every time. The illusion of fairness. Fairness is powerful as a cultural myth because it keeps people compliant. Societies depend on it. Workers believe effort will be rewarded, citizens believe justice will prevail, and students believe merit alone determines success. But when you look closer, fairness often collapses under pressure. Promotions go to those who network, not those who work hardest. Politicians who preach honesty bend rules to stay in office. Nations that lecture about peace use covert violence to protect interests. The illusion of fairness keeps people calm, while power flows elsewhere. Machiavelli recognized this 5 centuries ago. He saw rulers who tried to govern by fairness alone get overthrown, assassinated, or manipulated into weakness. He argued that the ruler who clings to fairness while others embrace ruthlessness is like a sheep surrounded by wolves. The sheep may look noble, but it will not last. Survival demanded stripping away illusions and facing the game as it really was: bloody, competitive, and merciless. In our modern world, fairness still functions as a performance. Corporations talk about doing good while squeezing workers and manipulating markets. Leaders talk about justice while crushing rivals in backroom deals. The lesson is clear: fairness may exist in words, but power belongs to those willing to see through the illusion. If you want to play the game seriously, you cannot rely on fairness to protect you. You must understand it as a mask, and know when to rip it off. Machiavelli's world. To understand Machiavelli's ruthless lessons, you have to understand the world he lived in. Renaissance Italy was not the romantic place we imagine today with art, beauty, and poetry. It was a battlefield of city-states like Florence, Venice, and Milan, where betrayal, mercenaries, and assassinations shaped politics more than philosophy ever could. Leaders who hesitated were crushed. Families who trusted too much were wiped out. Alliances shifted overnight. The very air of the time was poisoned with intrigue. Machiavelli himself was not born into wealth or nobility. He was a civil servant in Florence, serving as a diplomat and political thinker in a city constantly under threat from its neighbors. He watched kings, popes, and generals maneuver like chess masters, and saw firsthand how morality was often discarded the moment it became inconvenient. His brutal honesty in The Prince came not from theory, but from watching weak rulers lose everything because they believed goodness alone could hold power. This context matters. Machiavelli's lessons may sound dark, but they were born from survival in a ruthless world. He wasn't encouraging random cruelty, he was teaching leaders how to stay alive when surrounded by enemies. His world was a jungle where fairness was suicide and ruthlessness was the only insurance policy. Seen this way, his lessons are less shocking and more brutally practical, a survival manual for anyone who holds power in dangerous times. 1. Fear over love. One of Machiavelli's most famous ideas is that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Love is fragile. People love you when things are good, when you provide benefits, when their emotions align with your actions. But love fades quickly when times get hard. Fear, on the other hand, endures. People may resent you, but they will obey if they fear the consequences of disobedience. Fear is rooted in survival instincts, and it cannot be shrugged off as easily as affection. Machiavelli did not argue that rulers should be hated. Hatred leads to rebellion. Instead, he taught that calculated fear, fear of punishment, fear of consequence, keeps people loyal longer than love ever could. A ruler who relies only on love will be abandoned in a crisis. A ruler who builds respect through fear will endure, even in storms. History is filled with examples. Leaders who inspire love are celebrated, but leaders who command fear survive longer. In today's world, this lesson still applies beyond politics. In business, bosses who rely only on popularity often fail to enforce discipline, leading to chaos. In competitive industries, fear of consequences keeps teams sharper than affection alone. This doesn't mean cruelty for its own sake. It means that when you have to choose between being liked and being respected, respect must win. As Machiavelli understood, love is optional in power, fear is insurance. 2. Appearances trump reality. Machiavelli saw clearly that people judge by appearances, not by truth. Leaders don't need to actually be virtuous, they only need to appear virtuous. Honesty, compassion, and fairness are masks you wear when they serve you. Behind the mask, you calculate, manipulate, and decide with ruthlessness. The masses rarely look deeper. They believe what they see, and appearances are easier to control than reality. This lesson is both cynical and powerful. A ruler can commit ruthless acts behind the curtain, as long as the stage performance looks noble. A politician can sell war as peace, greed as generosity, and ambition as service. People want to believe in goodness, so they cling to appearances. Machiavelli warned that leaders who reveal their true nature too openly will be destroyed. Survival requires illusion. Today, this principle is clearer than ever. Politicians speak about integrity while cutting deals in smoke-filled rooms. CEOs talk about sustainability while exploiting cheap labor. Influencers preach authenticity while staging every moment for the camera. The lesson hasn't aged a day. Appearances matter more than truth, and controlling them is one of the most ruthless and effective tools of power. 3. Cruelty as a tool. Cruelty is one of Machiavelli's most controversial teachings. At first glance it seems barbaric. Why would a leader embrace cruelty? But Machiavelli did not promote cruelty for its own sake. He warned against reckless, endless brutality, which only breeds hatred. Instead, he taught that cruelty, when used strategically and sparingly, can serve as a powerful tool. The key is precision. Cruelty must be decisive, controlled, and used only when it prevents greater chaos. Machiavelli pointed out that sometimes a harsh act in the short term prevents far greater suffering in the long run. A swift execution of traitors, for example, can stabilize a kingdom and save thousands of lives by discouraging rebellion. A show of force can prevent war by convincing enemies that resistance is hopeless. To Machiavelli, cruelty well used was cruelty applied once, sharply, and then stopped, leaving no room for lingering resentment. By contrast, leaders who waver or punish inconsistently invite endless turmoil. In modern terms, this lesson translates into the importance of making tough, sometimes ruthless decisions without hesitation. A CEO cutting jobs to save a company from collapse may seem cruel, but it preserves the company for future survival. A government cracking down on corruption may appear harsh, but it restores order. The danger lies not in cruelty itself, but in cruelty that is sloppy, excessive, or motivated by ego. Used correctly, cruelty is not chaos, it is control. 4. Betray before being betrayed. Another of Machiavelli's dark lessons is the logic of betrayal. In his world, alliances were fragile, and trust was often a fatal weakness. He argued that leaders must always be ready to break promises, abandon allies, or betray agreements when their survival depends on it. To wait until you are betrayed is to be naive. The ruthless leader anticipates betrayal and strikes first. This advice shocks because it violates everything we are taught about loyalty. But Machiavelli saw loyalty as conditional. Allies stay loyal when it suits their interest, not out of morality. When interests shift, betrayal follows. Therefore, the wise leader watches for signs, calculates probabilities, and does not hesitate to act first. To cling to promises out of sentiment is to invite destruction. History proves this point. Alliances between nations crumble the moment interests conflict. Business partners turn into rivals when profits shift. Friends betray friends for ambition. In competitive arenas, betrayal is not the exception, it is the rule. Machiavelli's lesson is harsh but practical. Do not wait to be betrayed. Anticipate it, and if necessary, betray first. In the ruthless game of power, hesitation is death. 5. Fortune favors the bold and ruthless. Machiavelli believed that fortune, the unpredictable force of chance, controls half of human life. The other half, however, belongs to human will. He argued that boldness, aggression, and audacity are the best ways to conquer fortune's uncertainty. Timid leaders, who wait for opportunities to come, are destroyed by fortune's storms. Ruthless leaders, who seize control with bold action, bend fortune to their will. He compared fortune to a river. When it overflows, it destroys everything in its path. But those who prepare, build dams, and redirect the flow can control its power. In the same way, bold leaders shape circumstances before circumstances shape them. This requires risk, courage, and often ruthlessness, because fortune rewards those who act, not those who wait. Modern examples make this lesson obvious. Bold entrepreneurs who launch disruptive companies change industries. Political leaders who seize opportunities in crisis cement power. Fortune favors those who are willing to act without hesitation, even when others hesitate out of fear or morality. To Machiavelli, boldness was not just a virtue, it was survival. Inaction is weakness, and weakness invites destruction. 6. Morality is flexible. Perhaps the darkest of Machiavelli's lessons is his treatment of morality. He argued that morality is not absolute, it is flexible, a tool to be used when convenient and discarded when dangerous. Leaders should appear moral, because morality inspires trust, but they must never be trapped by it. To be good at all times is to place yourself at the mercy of those who are not. This flexibility is unsettling because it suggests morality is a costume. Machiavelli saw it as necessary. A ruler who refuses to lie, cheat, or manipulate when circumstances demand it will be destroyed by those who do not share that restraint. The wise leader uses morality as a shield when useful, but does not hesitate to abandon it for survival. We see this everywhere in modern life. Politicians break promises as soon as it serves them. Corporations trumpet social responsibility while exploiting loopholes for profit. Even individuals shift their morals depending on convenience. Machiavelli's lesson is simple. If you cling to morality rigidly, you will lose to those who treat it as flexible. Ruthlessness lies in knowing when morality is a mask, and having the courage to take it off. The modern battlefield. Machiavelli's ideas were forged in Renaissance Italy, but they remain alive today. In politics, ruthless calculation wins elections. In business, corporations dominate not by playing fair, but by crushing competitors. In culture, celebrities and influencers craft appearances while hiding their real strategies behind the curtain. The battlefield has changed, but the weapons remain the same. Fear, appearances, cruelty, betrayal, boldness, and flexible morality. Look at global politics. Nations talk about cooperation but spy on one another. Leaders shake hands on camera while undermining each other in secret. International organizations claim to uphold fairness while serving the interests of the most powerful. This is Machiavelli's world in modern form. Fairness is a performance, ruthlessness drives results. Look at business. Tech giants preach innovation and community while monopolizing markets and crushing smaller rivals. CEOs smile on stage about values while making ruthless layoffs. The most powerful figures in the corporate world know exactly what Machiavelli taught. Fairness is for appearances, ruthlessness is for survival. The battlefield has shifted to boardrooms and stock markets, but the rules remain unchanged. Counterpoint, the cost of ruthlessness. As much as Machiavelli's lessons reveal the truth of power, they are not without cost. Ruthlessness can win battles, but it also creates enemies. A leader who rules only by fear may survive for a time, but will eventually face rebellion if hatred outweighs respect. A leader who betrays too often may find no allies left. A leader who abandons morality completely may gain the world but lose legitimacy. Machiavelli himself acknowledged these dangers. He warned against cruelty that is excessive, against betrayal that is reckless, against fear that turns into hatred. His lessons are not instructions for blind brutality. They are strategies for survival in a hostile world. Used carelessly, they destroy the very power they are meant to preserve. Ruthlessness is a tool, not a lifestyle. Modern examples prove this point. Dictators who rule by pure fear often collapse violently when people reach their breaking point. Corporations that exploit workers too harshly eventually face backlash, lawsuits, or boycotts. Leaders who betray too many allies find themselves isolated. Ruthlessness wins power, but only wisdom preserves it. The cost of ruthlessness is always looming. and only the most careful players avoid paying it. Conclusion: the paradox of power. Machiavelli's darkest lessons are not comfortable, but they are true. Power does not reward fairness. It rewards calculation, boldness, and ruthlessness. To survive and dominate, you must be willing to see the game for what it is, not what you wish it to be. Fear lasts longer than love. Appearances matter more than reality. Cruelty, betrayal, boldness, and flexible morality are weapons in the arsenal of power. Those who refuse to use them are often destroyed by those who do. Yet there is a paradox here. We admire ruthlessness in secret, but condemn it in public. We celebrate the winners while pretending to despise the methods they use to win. We want to believe in fairness, even as we live in a world that proves otherwise. Machiavelli's genius was in stripping away this illusion and showing us power in its raw form. The ultimate lesson is not that we must all become ruthless monsters, but that we must understand ruthlessness if we want to survive. Fairness is beautiful, but it is not enough. Those who stop playing fair, who know when to be ruthless, will always write the history books. The rest are footnotes.